Your resume and your LinkedIn profile is
Oh,
marketing
it's
material. That's all it
true.
is. You're marketing your skill set to an audience. And you have to look at your resume and your LinkedIn profile like marketing material. Just you think about it. Like one of the first rules of marketing is know who your audience is.
Yes.
Market to your specific audience, right? And a lot of people have a hard time doing that. And so when it comes to like building either a resume or a LinkedIn profile, you have to keep that in mind. Like who are you trying to catch the attention?
You just
If you have a well built out LinkedIn profile, it's going to have all of the keywords we're looking for. I mean, we've been using LinkedIn Recruiter for decades at
right.
this point in time. We've used it for a really long time. And this is, especially for software engineers, this is our number one source to go
Wonder.
find people, right? We're not using Indeed. We're not using Monster, if that's even a thing anymore. We're not using these other platforms to go find software engineers. It's LinkedIn.
Yes.
That is where we go for this. So you need
Yeah.
to build these things so this way you're marketing yourself to recruiters so we can go find you, right? And the best way to do that is number one, please use generic job titles. I cannot stress that enough. My goodness. It's too easy to, I understand. Like you want to make sure that your job title that you have at is relevant to the company that you're at, but it doesn't mean that that's actually what your job means on the outside world.
Okay.
Right. And so if you are, it was funny, like I worked at a company we would call like engineers like fanatical engineers. That means nothing in the real world.
Nothing.
At Meta, we don't use job titles like senior software engineer. It's E5, E6, right? You just an actual title to that. So you need to be using titles that represent your actual experience to the actual real world market that's out there.
Correct.
For an example, I don't know why banks do this, but I'm not sure if you've seen this, but they hand out VP titles like you're at an Oprah show.
Does.
You're a VP, you're a VP, you're a VP. Everybody's a darn VP, but that's not how the real world works, especially at software companies.
Yeah. It doesn't.
VP is a manager of managers of a manager, right? And if you're an ICVP at a bank and you're trying to get out of banking, take that off your resume and your LinkedIn
Yeah.
profile immediately. Unless you're targeting other banks, they'll understand what that looks like. But again, it's knowing who your audience is, right?
Correct.
Oh, drives me bonkers every single time I see that. It's like, was this really a VP? And I start having a conversation because I'm trying to hire an actual VP, and they're like, oh no, I was an IC, but like a technical lead kind of
Yeah.
thing. Like, but you were making. How did you get that title? Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. But
And also maybe Chris have people proofread, right? Proofread resume, proofread
yeah,
your
yeah.
LinkedIn profile. People are more than willing to give you critique and give you feedback, right?
Oh,
Might as well maximize that, right? Your acquaintances are for a reason. Connect with them, ask them to give you feedback and critique your resume because now you know what you should be adding to your LinkedIn profile, what you should be elevating on your resume. Make sure you have, even on your LinkedIn profile, a lot of people have their LinkedIn profile mirror their resume, and that's totally fine.
yeah,
Or you can have two separate, but don't make it so distinct and so varied that there is no connection between your resume and
yeah,
LinkedIn
yeah.
profile. Let's have the same personality layer, let's
Have
have the
some
same individual
balance.
shine through.
You got to
Let's
have
have
that
some
balance
balance. Absolutely.
there.
Yes.
And so,
And please have a professional picture. I would definitely highly recommend
yeah.
and have the right tagline because that is what, to your point, you
Oh,
speaking about
taglines are
recruiters
great.
reaching out, that's how they identify people. So
Hmm.
call out if you've joined, if you've been in groups that you're part of, you've done some certifications. Great way to showcase all your accomplishments. There is a word limit on experience. I know there's 2000 characters, but beyond that, you can add so much stuff on your LinkedIn
Oh,
profile.
so
So
much.
maximize that profile space.
Yeah, to take advantage of that because we're using Boolean searches and things like that to be able to find those right candidates. And even going back to like the resume piece on the marketing side of that, again, knowing who your audience is. And a lot of folks are trying to change, almost a different job profile. When I'm talking to job profiles like software engineer, machine learning engineer, or data scientist, right? Everybody's kind of bouncing, or TPMs or product manager. Everybody's kind of bouncing around these different things. And so when you think about marketing, again, it comes right back to this. You
Yeah.
have to market to a specific job profile. And your resume and your LinkedIn, you have to look at it like a credit report, right?
Yeah.
And so if you've got 10 years experience, work as a software engineer, you're going to have a decent credit score when it comes to your
Good.
resume. The higher that number, the more opportunities you're going to have, the more
Definitely.
money you're going to
True.
make. Now, if you're 10 years as a software engineer, but you don't have any experience as a machine learning engineer, maybe you took some training programs. Okay, you're not gonna be zero credit, but you're gonna have a little.
Right.
So that
Yeah.
means you're likely going to be taking a step back because you don't
Yeah.
have the experience. Now, there are some opportunities where you could actually get into a software engineering job that's going to have a little bit of machine learning into it. And that's how you make that little stepping stone step, especially in a sluggish job market. Now is
Yeah.
not the time to do anything new.
Mm.
Like, and
Yeah.
I feel bad for folks who've been biding their time, like waiting for to move into like a management job.
Mm.
Listen, you can't get into a manager position, going from an IC to a
Yeah.
manager to a new company. That's not going to happen, right? You have
Yeah.
to, that happens within the current organization you're at. So if that's the path you're trying to go, lean in with your strengths. This is survival market. This is not a balanced market or a dynamic. This is survival mode. Get into something that's your strengths. Find a company that you're excited about and a product that you're excited about. Then
Hmm.
work your way into that management job. Don't try to make that change. And again, I hate this doom and gloom thing of this, but it's the reality of it, right? We
Yes.
have to survive this. Once we survive this and things bounce back, then we can start working on that.
Great.
Start developing those
Agree.
and training programs to pad the resume a little bit to highlight some of those
Yeah.
relevant experiences you have. But when it comes to resumes, you need to have a resume per job profile. For an example, like
Yeah.
myself, I have four. I've got I've got two for like just corporate regular recruiting, and I've got two for
Yes.
tech. One manager,
Mm.
one IC for each one of those, because depending
Right.
on my audience,
Very true.
I want to make sure that I'm applying to the right audience there. Now, my LinkedIn profiles are going to be more generic, so you get one of those, but you could add
Yeah.
more of that information on there. We're able to sift through it and find the keywords you're looking for and move forward from there. But what people don't
Yeah.
understand, well, let me ask you this: how much time average do you think you spend on each resume?
Oh my gosh, people are not going to like the answer, but it's less than 7 seconds with recruiters. And thinking of 1,000 applicants, you
Yes.
have less
Oh
than
my
seven
gosh.
seconds the recruiter are spending per resume,
I
right?
would say
So
between 3 to
have
15 seconds is like my max.
yeah,
Like we're swiping, we're going through resumes like we're swiping on Tinder. Like nope, nope,
literally.
nope, yep. And I even have like two folders where I put all my yeses or all there. Everybody's a maybe until I go through the second time. Then I go through it again. Then I'm like, okay, these are the 10 I want to chat to. But this also kind of comes into play about the whole black
Yeah,
hole of resumes. Everybody, because we do a bunch of resume reviews at Interview Kickstart,
yeah,
like, so many. And one of the
yeah,
first questions I always ask them is why, right? And the answer always it
yeah,
always tells me what I need to help them with. It's either, well, I'm not hearing back, or I keep getting rejected. Now, if you're getting
okay,
rejected from jobs, your resume is not matching the actual the
yeah,
job description. And I know this is a groaner, but you have to read job descriptions. And I know
yeah,
they're awful. You have to. But if you're missing something on your resume that's on here that you can do, make sure you add it because that could
yeah,
disqualify, right? And so it's having that attention to detail is going to help you there. But so talk to me
totally.
about the black hole of resumes. Like what does that mean and like what's happening there?
I think one thing we have to understand, again, going back to what we've been talking about, the competition is stiff at the moment, right? It's not just a handful of applicants or a handful of people pursuing opportunities. You're having in herds, right? You're having 1,000 people, 1,000 plus, and these are all equally qualified, and one edges the other by probably less than 1%. So the work of the recruiting team and the hiring team is to literally find someone. I've heard this thing's been thrown around. You got to be 12 on 10, you got to be 15 on 10. It's not a rating system, but the teams are figuring out ways to be innovative in how they shortlist that pool of 1,000 to
Hmm.
maybe 30, maybe 25, right? What is a sizable number that a recruiter can manage to get one hire from this rack, right? So it is a black hole, but to your point is understanding what the job entails, understanding the job description, and making sure that your resume calls that out and don't have it in conflict with what's on your LinkedIn profile. So if
Yeah.
you're a product manager and you're applying for a program manager and your LinkedIn profile is all product, but your resume is program, There's a huge mismatch here.
Yeah,
So you
wires
got
across.
to be very clear, what are you trying to achieve? Again, both are amazing roles, amazing opportunities, but you have to be very clear, what are you pursuing for, or customize your resume that aligns with your background. You can't try and fit the job description 100% of the time, but make sure
Oh,
that it's you and your experience that's through the resume that you're reflecting. Chris,
yeah.
what has been your experience here?
Oh man, yeah, it's definitely a black hole of resumes. But you're talking about, a lot of applicant tracking systems. Now, for those of you who don't know,
Mhm.
like an ATS is like that is our main source of everything.
Mhm.
Like everything happens in here, whether this is where we post jobs, review resumes, send emails, hire people, schedule interviews. Everything is done in this applicant tracking
Yeah.
system. And so a lot of them even have like these AI tools that you can kind of look into
Yeah.
that. Now, I'm not sure if this is just happening to you, but I don't trust them for nothing because we actually did a study. We tested out three different applicant tracking systems with the same resume and the same job description, and I got
Mm.
different numbers for everything, right? Because
Oh,
not every AI system is built exactly the same. They're always going to identify something a little bit different. And so when it comes to applying to positions, especially in survival market, you have to make sure that you meet every single bullet point for minimum
yeah.
qualifications. If you're missing even the slightest one,
That's
don't
minimum.
bother applying, right?
Yeah.
Now, also, you need to hit majority of the preferred qualifications too.
Innovation.
And you have to make sure that it is stupid easy to find on a resume. Because I'm again, we don't read resumes. Like we don't read them word for word. Like I said, you spend about 5 seconds on a resume, 3 to 15. We don't spend time to read on that.
Yeah.
We're looking for keywords. We're going through this quick. I
Yeah.
could probably read a LinkedIn profile that I can a resume because it's the exact
Yeah.
same format. So don't make crazy resumes and this crazy formatting where it's hard to find some things. And your summary shouldn't be a page long. Like
True.
I'm not sure about you, but if I have a 19-page resume, I won't even read it.
Oh my
It's an
God.
auto decline. It's an auto decline. Like that right there tells me this person doesn't have the self-awareness of like, oh, this is resume isn't going to work. What is your ideal length of a resume?
Ideally 2 pages,
Okay.
but it's okay to get to three. I think keep it less than four
Oh yeah.
because again, you're thinking about attention span, you're thinking about what it should cover, what it should bake in that. Also, to your point of the resume, is there are a lot of resources available
Oh yeah.
that can tell you what a template should look like, how the word, how it should sound, have the verb, have your action, have your results. You have a lot of these templates that are already ready. All you have to do is plug in and play,
Oh yeah.
right? Use these resources. Like you don't have to create things from scratch. Use these resources. Uh, most of these ATSs can read a PDF format. That's an
Oh,
easier
don't
format.
even start on PDFs.
Don't get
Ah,
stuck into the Word and Google Doc. Let's not go down that
man,
battle, but
don't ever use
use a
Word.
neutral use a
My goodness.
neutral template,
Yes.
because your ATS can read that off. That's easier to read for an ATS. So focus on things that's ATS friendly because that's
Yeah.
going to help you at least stand out from the in the black hole.
Yeah, right. I mean, so yeah, speaking of that, because a lot of us we use Macs, and so when someone
Yeah.
sends me a Word like resume, it comes up in page. It is a disaster. Doesn't look good. It's broken. Your tables get all messed up. A lot of
Yeah.
applicant tracking systems hate tables, and
Yeah.
it will jumble up the resume. So
Gotcha.
I always say always send it PDF, but not a photocopy one that they can sparse the information out of. It helps kind
Yeah.
of fill in those gaps, and there's like software that can help do that. Um,
True.
Yeah, my goodness. How many times I tell people, like, stop sending me a Word resume because it just doesn't look good. But there's a lot of
And you
tools
have
out
to
there.
convert. The
You
worst
always
is
got to
when you have
convert
to
it.
convert at your end. So you're
Uh,
spending that much time in converting. And I'm like, there's an easier way to do this. It's a
there's an
better way to do
absolute easy
this.
way of doing this. And
Yeah.
so, man, yeah, when it comes to resumes, like that's one of my biggest pet peeves. Like, okay, you send me something I can't use, right? So, again, make sure it's simple. Now, for myself, like I always say, like 3 pages max. I mean, 4 pages, no. I mean, anything after 10 years isn't really relevant experience anyway. Right. So like shorten the stuff down at the very end, but I want to see the meat and potatoes is what I'm looking for. I want to see that. I want to see like your summary piece there. And when it comes to the summary piece, 2 sentences. I don't need anything crazy long, but use actual numbers. Like I don't know what it is about like numbers in a resume. It pops in our eyes, right? So if you say it's like I've got 15 years experience as a software engineer and then 3 years experience as a people manager, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Which
Um,
is totally fine. I think that's what the ATS friendly templates do, right? You have to speak about impact. In fact, I remember when, especially one of the things for recent grads, absolutely, they don't have much to talk about, right? Because they don't have the experience. But that's what I tell the recent grads. Well, you've had a lot of project work at school and
yeah,
colleges.
yeah, highlight
You've
that.
done internships. Highlight that because
Hmm?
you worked in an internship. Think about the impact. What did you drive? What was the ultimate result of you being and doing a particular action? Quantify that because, as you said, numbers stand out.
Hmm.
It relates to us. If someone has increased viewership by 30%, great. I want to know, what did this person do? Was it
Hmm.
social media campaigns? What did the person do differently that drove more users, that drove more clicks? We want to hear the story because now you're giving a little bit to the reader, like, hey, there's something more about me. Talk to me to learn more, right? Why close the door? Leave that door open and use
Yeah.
ways of how you can do that.
And so when you're talking about like numbers, I mean, percentages, always use percentages. Like don't use dollar amounts because
Yeah.
it's subjective, right? Bank of America, you had a $10 million project you're working on. For Bank of America, that's just a coin in a hat. But a startup, that's their entire like funding, right? So always use like percentages versus dollar amounts, unless you're like in sales. That's a whole different conversation there. But
Yeah.
now,
But provide perspective, though. I think to your point, it's
oh yeah,
important
yeah.
when you're having the conversation with a recruiter. Many a times I would hear that, oh, my team grew by, I have a team of 20. I'm like, okay, what does 20 translate to? Is that
Mhm.
the biggest team that you've led? How big is the organization? If the organization is 10,000 and you led a team of 20, okay, what does that translate to in terms of level, in terms of scope, right? So
Right.
people have to understand this backward math that's happening. So make sure you're providing context, even if it's whole numbers, provide the context behind that.
Exactly. Now, what is your opinion on cover letters?
Hit and miss, hit and miss. But I would also say it's an extension of who you are.
Mm,
And that's your opportunity to literally, that's your sell story.
okay.
How are you able to sell yourself? Again, don't make it 2 pages cover letter, a short cover letter,
Oh my
half a
goodness.
page, but why are you the best fit for the role, right? So if you have an opportunity to submit a cover letter, to your point, Chris, what you mentioned earlier, it's your marketing tactic. Do not let go. Please submit a cover letter, but be very intentional in a cover letter. So it's not very generic, but it speaks to who you are. It speaks to your skill sets. It speaks to your leadership qualities. And it addresses the role that you're trying to impress or the company you're trying to attract or rather apply to.
Sure. Let me ask you this. How many cover letters have you read? Like, how often do you read
Now,
a cover letter?
ATSs, yeah. So I
Yeah.
would some of the ATSs allow the cover letters to come through. So I'll be honest with that. Some of them don't, right? But when the cover letters do come through, I definitely want to read through it. It's like reading, Chris, if you recall, it's reading the referral note. If someone is an internal referral, then
Yeah. Referral
you
notes
want to
for
read
sure.
the referral note.
Hmm.
So I look at cover letters from that perspective, like, hey, is
Gotcha.
there something more to this person that tells me a story about this individual? Right? So many a times people, again, I'm not saying that is the make or break, but absolutely use that as another way to solidify your interest in the role.
Sure. Like my opinion on this is like it'll never hurt you. Um, but I can tell you this, like again, doing this for about 20 years, I've never read a single cover letter and never will. Because again, we're going through these things too quick, and most and almost every cover letter I get is exactly the same thing. Like I
Yeah.
was even at the point now where a company did require a cover letter. Like I hate cover letters so much. I had ChatGPT write me one. I'm like, here you go. Like I don't even care anymore. And,
Yeah.
and and again, like this is just my opinion on it too. Is like it'll a cover letter will never hurt you, but make
Yeah.
sure that you do put a little bit of if you're gonna do it right, right? Don't just
Yeah.
have a generic one where you plug and play the company name and then send it off. It's not going to do you any good. You're honestly wasting
Yeah.
your time if you do that.
True.
So I always like talking about this. I'm always kind of curious where how other recruiters look at cover letters because I'm going to be honest, don't read them. I don't have the time for that.